Couple of days before my birthday, I went to the library, changed my books, and this day there was a new librarian there. At this time I just had a pair of shorts and a vest, because come April, temperatures was 35, 36, 38, around there. And this guy wouldn't let me in. I said, I come to the library every day. Every couple of days I'm in the library. I said, what's the problem? He said, you have to wear shirt and trousers to come into the library. And as this guy was talking to me, he was playing with himself, which is very common in Tihar. And there was a few foreigners in the library, so I said quite loudly, I said, why are you playing with your cock when you're talking to me? I said, that's quite rude. And he stared at me with daggers that would have killed me 100 times. And he just said, go. So I left, goes back to me ward, goes to the stockbroker, says, hey man, can you lend me a shirt? I said, I have to get into the library and I got to have a shirt. He says, what? I says, yeah man. So anyway, he lent me a shirt and I put on my winter trousers, the only pair that I had. Goes back to the library, walks in, goes up to the guy, goes, he says, yeah, carry on. So I gets my books, brings them back, and he's booking them out, and he's telling me about this one book, how nice it is, it's a good read. And the guy was completely different. And just before I left, he said, next time, he said, you can just wear trousers. He said, don't worry about a shirt. Because I told him I had to borrow a shirt, I didn't have one. And from that point on, we become very good friends. Just another mad day in Tihar, On my birthday, woke up normal time, 5:30. And then we just got out tea and the heavens opened up. I mean, they really opened up. Thunder, lightning, and I was in my cell. A stockbroker come in and he said, Mr. Steve, this is not normal. He says, not for April. He said, it's not normal. I said, it's just God wishing me a happy birthday. And he laughed. He said, I'll go and scrounge some tobacco, which he did. Come back. We had a bit of a smoke. 2 hours later, I had deli belly. Oh, God, I felt like shit. Anyway, I goes to the OPD, goes to go to the toilet, and as I go in, they just taken a guy down that just hanged himself. Went to the OPD, went into the toilets, and he hung himself. And that was that. Anyway, just want to mention about washing. In the wards, they have hand pumps, like these things you see in the old Western films, where you've got to pump the water up. And that's how I used to take a bath, for want of a better word. I would stick a bucket under the pump it for about 20 times, and then the water would come out. And by the time I finished, I'd have a bucket of water, and I was knackered. And I'd just have a jug, and you're outside. You just jug the water over you, you're in your underpants, And that's how we used to wash. The power went off this day, and we were in the cell, and within 2 minutes we were sweating buckets. And there's nothing you can do, you see. In Delhi, and especially that time of year, people would be using air conditioning units and whatever, and regular. Most days you'd have a power cut. And when the power cut comes, you've got one fan in the inside part of the cell. And when that fan goes off, there's nothing you can do. Absolutely nothing. You sit there and it just runs off you. And anyway, This day, I'm walking round to the hospital to see Bob the Englishman. And as I'm walking up, a guy comes along pulling a cart loaded up with fruit. And this was to go to the hospital. There was bananas and tomatoes and whatever. And as he's pulling this thing, a lump of bananas fall off. So I calls to this guy, he doesn't take no notice. So for the first time, I pick up this bunch of bananas, right? Goes, thank you. Goes back to my cell. Shares it with the servitor who was in the same cell as me and a couple of guys. And it was such a treat. And people call stuff like this the law of attraction, right? That you attract things to you. I've always called it the law of magnetism. And when I say always, since at least 2000, I was aware in my own mind about this law of magnetism, you know? It's the same as calling it the law of attraction. It's only another label. But for me, the law of magnetism works. It works when you don't want it to work, and it works when you want it to work. And that's as much as I can say on this. All I know is it's a real, definitive thing that for me comes from the universe. Anyway, at the end of April, I'm in a cell this day, and I'm reading the Bible. As I've said before, I'm not a religious person, but I was reading the Bible and I was getting into it, and I read about when they crucified Jesus and all this kind of stuff. And I fell asleep. And then about an hour or so later, the servitor woke me up. He said, Steve, he said, can't you hear the thunder and the rain? And I went, what? And I, woke up and, yeah, come on again. This is like the second time in April. It's just not known. And the strange thing is about this is that when I was reading about Jesus, from like 3 o'clock supposedly, I mean, who knows, until the evening time, there was thunder and lightning. And I'd been reading about it just before I fell asleep. And I can remember at that time, was God like reminding me? I don't know. What do I know? It's just how it was like. It really was just like that. Anyway, middle of May now. I was going round to the hospital, and I have to pass Ward 2, the privileged ward, and it was on lockdown. Something had happened inside the ward, so the AS decided to just lock it down, nobody in or out, and that was that. And as it turned out, Lando was at the gate, and he called me over. He said, Steve. And he thrust 2 500 rupee notes into my hand, 1,000 rupees, which then would have been about 14, 15 pounds in English money. He says, take this round to the langar, that's the main kitchen. He said, and there'll be one guard there. He told me his name. He said, give him this money. I said, yeah, okay. Now, you didn't have money in Tihar. The only way you got money in was to smuggle it in, because everything was in coupons. 5 rupee coupons, 10 rupee coupons, that was it. So I takes this 1,000 rupees as I walk round to the langar. And there's this one guard just stood outside. So I goes up to him and he looks at me, and I just sort of like surreptitiously shows him this 1,000 rupees, and I goes, Lando, and he just takes the money, goes to walk off and he grabs me by the arm and he sticks 30 grams of charas in my hand. So I takes the charas off this guard, goes round to Lando, and he's still there at the gate. Gives him the charas. He rips a lump off, says, there you go, mate. Very happy, thank you very much. Didn't go to the hospital, goes back round to the convict ward, calls the servitor and the other two that was sharing the inside cell with us, and we all got wasted. It was another happy day, you know. And when I look back, from that point onwards, even though I was still in the convict ward, my mindset was changing. Not much. I mean, as regards eating, I was living on half a loaf of bread a day and 2 cups of tea. And by the time I left in the August, my weight was down to around about 52 kilos. So I was quite thin by then. Hang on. I have to look at my notes, you see, because, okay, now I'm getting on a bit now, like. Just bear with me a moment, please. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. How can I forget this? In the convict ward this day. And just sitting outside on the step of the cell, not doing anything, and I hears this commotion. And apparently, what happens every now and then in the convict ward, they'll take 1, 2 or 3 people, whatever, and they transfer them to Central Jail number 2. And it was like a working jail where you worked making pottery or whatever, and you know they paid you a little bit for it. But this guy didn't want to go. He said, no, I'm not going to the factories into CJ2. And of course, you know, you have to go. The bottom line was he barricaded himself inside the cell, and he wouldn't come out. So the head Saab sort of went and said, you know, come on, you have to come out. And this guy having none of it. So he decided to shit himself and smear himself in shit. And he did, and it stunk. I could smell it, and I was a little way up from this guy. And so this really pissed off the head Saab. So some of the convicts just went in, bashed the barricade down, dragged him outside, and took him to the pump, and they were pumping water like the clappers and just washing him down and scrubbing him down. And then they sent him off to CJ2, and that was the end of that. Oh. I suppose just to end this on another sad note, if you like, I went round to see Bob, the English guy, and that morning somebody had hanged themselves in the BT ward, and in CJ4 7 people committed suicide. And this was not uncommon in Tihar at this time, believe you me. There is a video you can watch about Tihar, but it's not like it was, you know. And they would portray people sitting at tables and all this. I never sat in a chair till I left jail, apart from 3 occasions when some of my family come to visit me and I could sit on a plastic stool. Otherwise, I never sat in a chair. There was no tables. You know, you ate off the floor. You slept off the floor. You read off the floor. Everything was on the floor. And that's how it was. Next time.